Welcome back, everyone, to R2Kast number 81. Today we have a Nuffield Scholar, which I'll introduce in a wee second. I just want to say, if you've listened to the podcast today and you're interested in all things food and farming, you should check out some of the other R2Kasts we have released. Last week we had Emily Adicott-Savo, who I'm certainly unaware of any other people, but there is folk I know, but certainly unaware of any others producing quinoa in the UK. So that was a really interesting talk with Emily. And then next week we have, for some of you, any horticulturists out there, an extremely famous guest in Charles Dowding, the father of no-dig farming, or no-dig gardening, I should say. About 500,000 followers across all the old social medias, so that's another interesting one, especially if you're looking to maybe kickstart a home garden. And on Monday there, we had Jane Craigie Marketing, a Scottish-based marketing company, just telling us the way that you would market a new company. So maybe if you're starting a business in the rural sector, that'll be a good one for you to check out. And funnily enough, one of the three ladies on that day is starting her Nuffield journey this year, Claire Taylor, who you may or may not know, Michael. But I'm just going to introduce you to our guest today, who is Michael Blanche. Michael, would you like to say hello?
Hello.
Just before we get started with another episode of the R2Kast, I would like to thank our primary sponsors, A-Plan Rural. A-Plan Rural are heavily involved on the social media scene in the ag space with 120,000 followers on Instagram. They use this following to host social media takeovers with farmers throughout the country to showcase their stories. They also post to their rural community blog with further stories about these people in the industry. On top of this, they like to support initiatives that are championing the British agricultural industry, such as myself. So thank you to A-Plan Rural for that.
I'm very much looking forward to this one because Michael is actually a bit of a podcast expert himself, which we will get into. But I think, Michael, I'm right in saying you are the second most asked for guest on the podcast.
What, really? Who's the first?
Caleb Cooper. Caleb Cooper.
Oh, really?
From Clarkson's Farm.
Yeah, I said I wouldn't swear. Now I'm not to swear. But I don't believe it, but it's nice of you to see it.
No, it's honestly 100% true. 100% true. You hear of a lot of people asking, "Oh, can you get these folk on?" But I would say you'll be well into 20s and 30s of people asking. So
right.
It's James Edwards being one of them that we spoke about earlier.
So no pressure.
Was that no pressure at all? No pressure at all. You're only just second most wanted. Second most.
Right.
I've mentioned this whole Nuffield Scholarship idea, Michael. We'll get into that later, but let's get a bit of background on yourself. What's your sort of farming story?
Well, I'm a quinoa farmer.
Okay. Yep.
No, that's a joke. That's a joke. So the farming story, how long have we got? Because I would say, so I'm from a non-farming background. My dad was an accountant for the Aberdeenshire Council, amongst other things, and my mum was a nursery teacher. But so I suppose, oh God, I don't want to bore people, but right, let's start right at the beginning. So I was born in Edinburgh, 3 years in Edinburgh, moved up to a small hamlet in Banffshire. And small hamlet was dominated by this big farm. So 3 years old, move up there, and I have reflected on this, and just to try and get as deep as you and James Edwards did, but so my mum wasn't very well with my brother, having given birth to my brother, and it was a wee bit of it must have been a little bit, a lost little wee baby, Mm-hmm. And but I suddenly became obsessed by farming because, this big farm, and they would, move sheep along the road outside our house, and I'd get to go in the combine with the tractor driver lived next door, all that sort of stuff. And so then I became obsessed, and then I bought, all these farm toys. I bought my first and probably last tractor, and bought little sheep and cows, and they never died. It was amazing. I know.
It's already a false start, isn't it?
And so then, and I've just dreamt of being a farmer then, you see. and obviously with that, in parallel, I was told that it was really probably not worth my while because I didn't have a farm or any money or anything. So, and that was a constant message from a lot of people, including, I mean, bless them, my parents. So I kind of gave up on the idea and, you know, did school and did an English degree. But during my English degree, and it was English degree at, you know, it wasn't a sort of well-known university. It was just like a college higher education in Lancashire. Scumbag College, we used to call it. That's a reference to what's it called? The young ones.
I feel like you're putting yourself down here. Wrong.
Oh no, I totally got a 2-2 through York Notes alone. I never read a book.
Okay.
So,
yep.
So, but it was really good, and it was absolutely fantastic experience. You know, rugby and, you know, meeting girls, and not that many girls, but and you know, lots of bitter and pork scratchings. It was great. So, but during that time, I got a job from. You know, a lambing job from Nat and Jenny Strachan up at Yonderton near Turriff. Jenny sadly just passed away before Christmas. It was just at her funeral. As you know, Nat was long gone, but that was just an amazing experience. I did 4 lambing seasons with them, and it just sparked my interest again and passion again. And I bought another lot of toy animal. I didn't buy any toy animals, but I just loved it. I actually thought I was quite good at it as well. I mean, they were really nice because they said I was doing a good job. So it gave me a wee bit of confidence, and that's sort of, you know. So yeah, very quickly, I believed everyone saying that I couldn't be a farmer. So I'd try and move to being close to a farmer. So I went to Harper Adams and I studied land agency effectively. So how to wear tweeds, how to wash tweeds, how to get over the itch of the tweed underpants. Those were all
tweed underpants as well. You really went
modules. Yeah. So and then I became a land agent for 5 years. Not a very good one. Although I think I did a reasonable impression of a semi-competent one, but it was absolutely an impression. And the land agent firm that I joined was very big on compensation. So from morning to evening, it wasn't non-stop negotiation, but it was all about the negotiation. And I'm such a softie, eh? I'm just terrible. So I had to try and be, you know, but it was a sort of a low key stress all the time because it was trying to be someone I wasn't. But I learned so much. I mean, my boss, well, I had 2 bosses, and they were both really quite, I mean, big influences in what I was, you know, in just how I conducted myself, you know. So yeah, they were big mentors of mine. But I wasn't all, yeah, I knew it wasn't what I really wanted to do. It was quite good money, you know. I was offered a partnership, but I turned it down, much to, I think even Kate, my wife, wasn't all that pleased. But my parents definitely, well, my dad understood, because you have to put a lot of money into the partnership, eh? But, and also the terms weren't amazing. Anyway, so but that was a big fork in the road, you know, because you know, partnerships for life, you know, not so, you know, it's like they're locking the key and they're throwing it away. So I had to think of, and I actually had done my basis qualification, you know, the agronomy qualification. I'd done it as a land agent, which I don't know how I passed. I was really keen on it, but I had no real proper experience. But anyway, so anyway, I moved to SEC as a consultant, and they thought they were getting this dynamic, money creator, land agent, and this could be their new thing. They were very quickly disappointed, because I was probably one of the lowest one of the lowest fee earners in the actual place. I mean, I did have a small area of fifers, which that's a double whammy, isn't it? So it was I really loved it. It was like being in a sweetie shop. You just could phone any expert and you'll get this one. But it's just the thirst for knowledge was unquenchable. But I mean, there's an expert on weeds, on fungus, disease, loads of disease guys. And the Basil Lohman, who was I know he's Marmite for some, but I absolutely adored him. He was the beef specialist at SEC, was awesome. And then, John Vipe on sheep specialist. There's so many good people there. So, I loved it. And the clients, some of the clients were just, I mean, they were, ironically, they taught me more than I taught them. It was really, and I got paid for it. So it was really quite, I mean, it was, a bit jammy.
I can't help but think you always say you're worse than you actually are.
No. Well, I was bad for that, but I think I gave in return, but I did learn a lot. Yeah, you giggling about the giving and taking?
No, it wasn't actually. No, well, yeah. Now you've said it.
Anyway, you can cut that bit. But they did teach me. Even the clients. I would say I learned as much from the clients as a specialist, and I learned a lot from the specialists. But then I don't know. I had a really good chap that came to be head of our office, but it's one of the nicest blokes, But I didn't quite see. Yeah, it's tricky. I didn't quite see eye to eye to him in an agricultural sense.
Okay. Yeah.
And he wanted me to go to other offices. So that was a little bit of. I felt a little bit unnerved there because we'd sort of bought a house and we'd started. We had a young family then. And then I went for a couple of jobs at SEC. I went for the beef specialist job, and that was probably the worst interview I've ever done. And I didn't get it, and surprisingly. And then I went for the head of the Forfar office. And when you go for a job and you're the only applicant, and you still don't get it. I thought, nah. And it coincided with I basically got my arse kicked for not earning enough. And I thought, it just wasn't me. Anyway, by that time, oh shit, there's another parallel story here. So we go back in time slightly. So, this urge from when I was 3 years old to farm, it was always there, and in 2003, I left SEC in 2005. 2003, I remember very distinctly, waking up and I couldn't get back to sleep, and it was sort of 3 o'clock in the morning, and I sat on the stairs and I decided, I'd just been down, it was amazing. It was kind of a life-changing trip. It was just a normal trip, but we went down to Wales to see Yolo Owen and a couple of monitor farms. But it was Ian Riddle who organised it. He joked and said, this trip will change your life. You know, he's joking, but it bloody did change my life. Because Yolo Owen invented the easy care, you know, and you had Wiltshire horns and stuff like that. And I was just really taken by inventing a sheep that suited your purpose, and then of course you try and reinvent the wheel. You want to reinvent the wheel, then you want the perfect sheep, which for anyone that's thinking of, I mean, that is a misnomer in itself, isn't it?
I was just about to say, I wonder how long it's going to take me to say that. I think, you know, one of my favourite things, I haven't at all read your whole Nuffield Scholarship, Michael.
Well, that's a commitment.
One part is what is the motivation to get sheep? Was it mental health or determination? I think it was you wrote. And
yeah.
There's so much truth in that.
yeah. Well, it was actually in context because I'd worked out. I mean, I'll just finish that little story. I sat on those stairs, and it was like a revelation. There wasn't sort of sunbeams and angels singing, but it was a decision to give it a go. And I tell you, that is the biggest thing. Is to just start is the biggest thing, I think. And so I still and I've spoken about that moment before, and my voice has started to quaver because it's like I don't know why, but probably I didn't. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, the decision to give it a go was huge because that changes everything, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. So we started off, and I told Kate that I would go down and buy a few Wiltshire horns and maybe 10, we came. Well, in the end, I had 50, and I took a balance transfer from my credit card, which you could do then in those days. You could take $5,000, put it on a credit card, and put it into your bank, and that would be it. You know, because so I bought sheep on basically a credit card, and I say that the credit card companies still phone every day, which is nice.
Yeah, of course, yeah. It's always nice to have friends like that, isn't it?
So we did. I mean, we didn't have. Yeah. Anyway, that's how we bought the sheep, and we rented a couple of 12 acres maybe from Chapelong at Crieff, and then that increased over time. We got to 150. We were on 7 different holdings, and the paperwork was just I mean, I'm not good in paperwork, but it was just a pain, and it was lots of. I mean, if you're looking at production line and a system, it had so many points of friction. Looking back, and it was just anyway. And then a really good, you have these people in life that help you, and you can't really repay them apart from gratitude in your own mind. I never thank them enough, really. But there's a chap called Craig Mitchell down in West Fife, who was a client actually, and he said, well, you could have some sheep on my, I had 3 farms. So that was down in Salon near, Knockhill Racing Circuit, that sort of place. And so, but it was 35 miles from home. So that's where I wondered whether it was, commitment, passion, commitment, or mental illness, because I was 5 years there. And in that 5 years, I worked out that I'd traveled the same distance as over twice the circumference of the globe just to see my sheep. And that's what makes you question whether, and I mean, actually, I don't think I've ever done, the sheep have done as well as they did down there. So that was 5 years where we grew to about 600 females. I mean, this is nothing compared to the likes of James. So 600 females.
James has gone in the head in some ways, though. I'm sure he would not mind me saying that, the amount he takes on without thinking what's gonna happen. Yeah.
Well, I've kind of come to terms with it, though. I've come to terms. We'll maybe come to that, but so 650 females, and over this time we're going for we'd gone for 6 tenancies over that time. We'd not got on any shortlists. It was absolutely crazy. It's probably even crazier now, but there wasn't a lot coming up, and we'd gone for 6. Some of them, thank God we didn't get. And then the 7th came up, and the 7th came, it was near Selkirk. It was a council farm, but it was 450 acres and it had great buildings. And it was like, oh yeah, this is going to be awesome. So I went above and beyond what I thought I could afford. And we did make the shortlist. And, but you had to go down for the interview, and it was, first of all, it was a long corridor. And the kids loved WWE at the time.
Same, love
it. This was me. I in my head, I was like John Cena, coming down this huge corridor, and I opened the door, and there's like these. There's about 10 people. Anyway, so I sat down, and it went okay. I thought it went okay, and then you wait for the phone call, and. First of all, it doesn't ring, and then it rings, and you answer. You came second. I felt sick.
It's worse than 10th.
I know. Exactly, because when you don't make the shortlist, it's fine, eh? But but that, I think, that was a blessing. I mean, it's so a wee bit corny, but bad things happen and good things come of it, And that was my 7th year of farming. That was my 7th go. I thought number 7 was meant to be lucky, but I was absolutely gutted. I was so gutted. I felt I'd never do it. It's okay to have seasonal lets, but it's not a long-term answer if it's miles away from home. You have very little control of the land. I mean, I just couldn't see me doing it forever. So I decided, well, you have to do something, either give up or do something a bit more radical. So I went for this Nuffield Scholarship, and that was back in 2010. And I tried it before when I was at SEC and didn't even get an interview. And I obviously had a chip on my shoulder back then about it, but I tried again. And but this time, interestingly, I had a kind of a story. So I'd tried, I'd proved that I'd tried, and the frustration, probably had something, could be changed into being persuasive to get a Nuffield Scholarship, and I think that helped. So it must have had lower standards that year. So, but I did get it, and then. Yeah, are you bored yet, Willis?
I'm absolutely loving it.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I won't go into huge amounts of detail with the Nuffield, but I did go to Australia and New Zealand, which are almost compulsory. But it's just someone actually told me that a lot of Nuffield studies are actually technical,
Mm-hmm.
Mine was actually, unbeknown to me at the start, was almost fully about the human element.
I got reading it, Michael, and I'm sure you won't take offence to this, that it was not technical. which I absolutely loved, I must say.
Well, it is personality driven, isn't it? But I think so much I took from Nuffield, good and bad. But the good was sitting in a room in America with, I don't know, 50, 60 Nuffield scholars. Some of these guys were, I think one chap, what was he doing? Was he finishing like 200,000 cattle a year or something ridiculous in Queensland? And, there were people with, three times the number of cows as I had sheep, dairy cows. And you're sitting in this room and you've got this, what's the word when you're like
imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome, yeah. So you think, oh God, this is, and you have to stand up and explain what you're doing. So I stood up and I made a couple of jokes, and I thought, oh, this is actually, I got away with that. So and it was a slow realization. I think it'd been a slow realization for a while. I did rural leadership, the Scottish Rural Leadership Program. That was another, development process. And Nuffield came after, and I think it was, looking back, when I was your age, Wallace, I don't know if I couldn't do anything like this. I wasn't a nervous wreck, but I didn't have the confidence at all to do anything. So, but you're in this room, you got away with just joking about something, and then you realize that actually these guys are really good at one thing, but you're actually quite good at other things.
Yeah.
And it was a revelation, because I always benchmark myself against other people on their terms. You know what I mean?
That's a really good way of putting it, actually.
Yeah,
you're focusing on the wrong metrics.
Yeah, so they had 1,500 dairy cows. They were, really, one of my favorite guys in the year was Rhys Williams, who had at the time 1,500 cows. He was a first generation farmer. And he's now bought his farm. He's just first generation guy on steroids. He's so successful. It's just, but I used to benchmark myself against that, but now I don't. I just, I'm not Rhys Williams. And that was actually quite a revelation to think, well, I'm not that chap. And actually to try and be that chap is not, it's probably not what you want to do. Just be yourself. So that was a real big thing. Anyway, blah blah blah. So there's loads of things about the Nuffield. We could come back to it, but I came back from that, and we went to France as well. Went to Cambodia and India, and then a few of us went to France, and we met this guy, John Bailey, who was an Irishman, spent most of his life in France, but he was a guru of rotational grazing and paddock grazing. And we went, and I'd come across it in Australia and New Zealand, and wow, but John was just immense. So the France trip was 5 days, but it was awesome. And so I came back and I thought, this is it. This is how I'm going to make money. This is how I'm going to build, become. Because I suppose as a first generation farmer, you want to be a proper farmer.
Yes.
But what does that mean? Which is another thing. But I knew it had to be more than I was. So came back and I was absolutely enthralled by the rotational grazing thing. This, to me, was like a totally different room in agriculture that I'd never been to. And this also had because if you're a first generation farmer, if you do what everyone else does, if you want to buy tractors and sheds and lots of feed and all that sort of stuff, which is totally understandable for an established business, you do the job right. If you're a first generation farmer without any money, you can't do that. I mean, that's a very quick way to failure. So you've got to think of another way. And feeding your stock on something that grows out the ground, whether you like it or not, at no extra cost, you're paying the rent anyway. I mean, that was just, if you could grow 30, 50% more, my theory was that I wouldn't have to use any fertilizer if I just put subdivision in, because you grow more grass anyway, because you let it rest. So, I mean, it was a no-brainer for a livestock farmer that didn't have any cash. So, that I came back really passionate about that. I suppose the other thing was I'd learned certain things, and I'd put it all. The 8th farm came up, so applied for that just after my Nuffield, and it was a 500-acre farm in Perthshire, and we got to the shortlist, and I went for the interview, and as usual, the phone rings. Got it. So so that was a nice thing. So we came here, called Chucker, and there's another farm, another home. So it's 500 acres. Half of it is Green Hill. It's not the best, but it was. I'd always dreamed about waking up in the morning, walking out the door, and seeing my sheep, and that was the first. That was it. So 8 years, 8 tries, and 8 is my new lucky number.
What is the third good 8 thing?
Oh, it has to be 3. You know the answer.
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't know.
Ate too much over Christmas?
Yeah.
I don't know what. Let's go with that.
Anyway, so that's a long answer to your first question.
Well, it's a. I mean, that in itself is a podcast. We could probably leave it here. And throughout, you kept saying, we can talk about the Nuffield Scholarship if you want to. You know the answer to that. Yeah, I absolutely want to talk about that.
Yeah.
So, New Zealand, Australia, France, Cambodia, and the States. Is that right?
States, India as well.
Where, sorry? India. Yeah.
India, yeah.
Yeah, did see that as well. So 2 of them stand out, India and Cambodia.
Oh yeah.
What I don't know. I've always been a bit of a geography addict and learning about places and capital cities and flags and all that. So the really obscure ones are always interesting to me. Like you said, New Zealand and Australia are almost. It's what happens. We've heard a lot of stories about the countries. They're both phenomenal at what they do. The States, you could argue, is in a lot of ways, but also is the opposite in a lot of ways as well. But Cambodia and India really do interest me, and I will get to other ones at some point. But what was farming like in those countries?
Well, Cambodia was first. So we went to Cambodia, and I thought, we're encouraged to go somewhere different, And I had a very good friend on the Nuffield year called Tony Davis from Wales. And I was telling him that I wanted to go. Someone in Australia suggested I go to Cambodia and it was a very flippant thought, because I had not thought it through. But I think the percentage of population in Cambodia pre-Pol Pot, I mean, your listenership will be young and won't have. I actually can remember the news reports from Cambodia about the famine after Pol Pot's revolution, that he left the country, and so I knew that, like, I think a population of, I could be wrong here, 5 million. 2 million either died or fled the country.
Mm-hmm.
So either from famine or actually, I mean, they were absolute horrendous. I mean, they would kill anyone with glasses, anyone of intellectual, intellectual background, or, and if you're a lecturer, you'd be, you're in danger,
No, but it is. That's kind of why I wanted to know about Cambodia, because I mean, you said 3 million out of the 5 left. That's right in my head, because it was 60% I had in my head, so that
Right.
worked out. Because his real name was something like Samet Sol. I can't remember exactly, but Pol Pot was basically a shortened down French name for political potential when he went there out and studied.
Really?
Yeah.
Hell, Wallace.
And that was purely based on the fact that he thought the only way to run a country was communist, very Marxian, read into all that sort of thing. And when he came back, he sort of employed this system that, in theory, I think we all agree makes sense, but it just can't happen. And then what that led to was this, well, one of the biggest atrocities we've ever seen. Yes. So yeah, I've always been interested in Cambodia. So sorry, I kind of took you off.
Well, no, but
I would just like to quickly interrupt the show for a minute to give you some extra information on our primary sponsors, A-Plan Rural. A-Plan offer bespoke cover for farms and estates the UK over, and will give you tailored insurance for anything on the farm, from your old workhorse tractor that's been around 20 years or a fancy new and exciting diversification.
I think I should be asking you the questions, because you know so much more about it. But I'll tell you what I took from it is that, I told Tony, so the percentage of population that are were agriculturally based before the revolution was really high, like late 70s, early 80%, I think.
Right.
And so it was very subsistence agriculture sort of thing. And I thought, well, there would be new entrants because there weren't, there was a lot of people that either left or died, or did the agricultural industry come from the ashes and build or whatever. So I was interested in that, and of course I was doing first generation farming, so I needed to know, I just wanted to get an idea of what happened. So, but Tony's cousin lives in Cambodia,
right?
Which,
okay,
like really random. But he was immense. He showed us round, and we went to Phnom Penh, and then we went up to a village on the border with Thailand. With all the atrocity and all the people will have had fathers, grandfathers, grandmothers, mothers, sisters, brothers, whatever. They'd have died, but they were the friendliest people. You'd wave in the tuk-tuks and they'd smile and wave back, and it was just I don't know, it's just like a sort of really energizing culture. People were I just loved the people. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so Phnom Penh was crazy. And then we go to this quiet village where Tony's cousin lived. And we go up this, he introduces us to a few people, one of whom was called Noi. And they take us up this river to a sort of farm. And Noi then tells a story that, he's a first generation farmer. And I thought I'd given up meeting anyone, first generation there. And he tells a story about, I can't remember what his dad did, but I think he was in politics. And he was born on the road as they were fleeing to Thailand.
Oh, really?
He actually never has a birthday because he doesn't know the date he was born.
Right.
And so he was like a proper cool dude as well, But he spent the first 12 years of his life in in a camp over the Thai border, and it wasn't. I mean, it was safe from the Cambodian regime, but the Thai guards weren't the best. If a woman got separated from the group, they get raped, and all horrible things they had to endure. But and so this was Cambodia was quite late on in my study, and I had thought so much about it and first generation farmer. Why even want to farm, and why is farming such a pull to people? And so I asked him why did he want to farm? He got this sort of bit of land, and he's doing sort of really innovative stuff. And he answered with one word, and it was freedom.
Okay.
And it really hit me like a train. I thought, someone had such a different life, such a challenging life compared to mine, white male privilege and all that. But I thought, and it's absolutely not the same, but it is the same as well. I think, I was working for a company, and then I worked for another company, and then I was told I wasn't good enough, and I was told this, and I didn't fit there, and I didn't fit in that particular thing because either I didn't like it or they weren't, all these things you were told. And then you farm, and it's yours, and you're in charge, and you can do what you want. You can go in a directions that you want to go, and you're judged on your results, obviously, but there was something that I just had a connection with him about freedom. It's the freedom almost to be yourself, but his freedom was so much more, So that was really good. And then we went to India, and then India was like, I mean, I wasn't prepared for how much we'd get looked down on. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah. The Indian agricultural scene is either subsistence or mega impressive farming units. And we went to the Punjab, which I think it might be one of the most fertile areas in the globe.
I think it's top 10, yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. They can grow 3 crops of maize at horrendous, like serious yields,
Yeah.
I think they're absolutely raping it. But
well, they will be, but also I think it's interesting. We look at the sort of the sustainability of that. They're soon to be the highest populous country in the world. I think they're sitting at 1.1 billion or something at the minute. Like, environment takes a bit of second place, and understandably so, so it makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, we did it, so
exactly,
we've got the right to do it as well.
Yeah.
But and then we went to another place. I can't remember where this was. It's terrible. But a proper businessman, like he had vertical, like it's like they were getting all their dairy. There was a lot of dairies we went to see, and they were getting all their dairy intellectual property from California.
Yeah.
So contained, they brought the feed to the cattle, the cows. I mean, labor was so. I mean, there's so many people working there because it was so cheap. And anyway, he had a feed plant, all on 12 acres. He had a feed plant, a dairy, and he retailed it as well. So it was like, and it was all on 12 acres. And it was such a big business. It was unbelievable. So, I mean, and so I just felt, hang on, we're not global leaders in some respects here, because we're not respected to, I didn't feel respected as I mean, there's probably other things going on there, but it was always a frustration, and I came back frustrated at the UK industry, agricultural industry, because I want it to be the best in the world, and in some respects maybe we are close, but other respects I was frustrated by it. But
how did they compare welfare wise?
well, because there's so many, that's a good question, Willis, because because there's so much cheap labor, I got the impression that the cows were quite happy. There's always someone brushing up. There was people everywhere. I thought that they were actually pretty darn good at farming.
That's the interesting thing there, though, is that's strictly based on animal welfare, not human welfare.
Yeah, good point. Shit, I forgot about the humans. but yeah, maybe the cows are in a better spot, eh? But
maybe. Well,
in
India, so maybe they're more important than humans. So
I like smiling at people and saying hello and stuff, and they were all really happy.
Yeah.
But some of the people at the top were just savage business people, eh?
I can imagine. I can imagine that.
Yeah.
The disparity of wealth in India is phenomenal.
Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. That's a big thing you get from India is the disparity, and the people working in the dairy were far better off than a lot of people we saw.
Yeah. And I assume Cambodia was the same. I assume Phnom Penh is extremely rich and extremely
yeah. Well, not the extreme. Well, I didn't see it. I didn't see the extreme poverty that I saw in India.
Okay.
But I saw the extreme wealth, and there's like really top of the range Mercedes, and there was wealth there, and there was poverty, but I don't know how to describe it, but this poverty. I don't want to be. They were still smiling. I don't know why that is important, but they didn't seem to be as materialistic as a lot of people as a lot of cultures that I've come across.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
it's true though, isn't it? The more, how you put this, the more perfection you experience, the less easy it is to find perfection. So like if you're constantly not experiencing a positive condition, you find the positives in that. Now that's not in any way justifying the condition, but it's what happens. It is what happens. It's why we see the world's poorest people be the most inviting and the most accepting of you and the kindest for the most part, because it's really sad to focus on. But what did you focus on in the States as part of the scholarship?
Mainly boozing.
Okay, yeah, important.
It was the States was really what you call the Contemporary Scholars Conference, which is CSC. So you meet up with all the people from around the world. There's Australians and New Zealanders. There was Americans, and I had a French guy who was a great lad. But it was really intense, like seriously intense to a point. I think, I'd never really. The thing you got to be careful with the Nuffield is they big you up. It's really great.
Yeah.
But they say, oh, yeah, you're really special and all that sort of stuff. And of course you believe it. and there's a lot of sort of, well, yeah, we're going to do this and all that sort of stuff. And so you really get caught up in the moment. And that was, I think it was a week. Was it a week or 10 days? But was so intense. I've never really done, and of course it was during the day. We'd go on farm visits, we'd go to conferences, we'd have to do things ourselves, in terms of presentations and stuff like that. And you were asked a lot of, and then at night you'd go out and drink and have a great time, and it was just and I just had such a good time, really. But I think it goes. I did come back a bit of an arsehole because, and I know other people that have said that as well, is that you kind of go into a little bit of a bubble, and you become obsessed by your study and and Nuffield and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's a great institution, but I think you just handle with care would be my.
You strike me as an arsehole. No, I'm joking.
I never lost it.
I can imagine that is the case. I mean, a totally different thing. But even when I did my masters, I would like to think I didn't leave my masters like that. But you're so focused and intrinsically linked with this thing for however long, and especially with Nuffield, where it slightly differs, is you've got this team of people that are doing a different thing but the same thing, and you've sort of got that almost like group mentality pushing forward towards that goal, and all that matters. That so I do get that.
It's interesting because I suppose on that trip there was a really good day where we went to see like a 2,500 cow dairy that was kind of meant to be one of the top of the range in Pennsylvania, and it was really impressive. And the chap said something brilliant. He said, if you're the lowest cost producer, your business is going to grow whether you like it or not. And that really hit home for me. I mean, that was awesome for my study. But that was before lunch, and then after lunch we went to see an Amish community and a chap called Sam Reel, and I think he had 6 cows, and they all were hand milked.
Right.
And he stood up and he talked about how he loved farming, and he started to cry.
Okay.
Because he loved farming so much. And I thought, if there was ever a contrast of this hard-headed businessman who was so into efficiency and he'd grown a business, and Sam, who was all heart.
Yeah.
And, and head and heart, if there ever was a contrast there, it was that day, and it did make me think. And that's why I think my study was very hard. It was more Sam than the guy that was really into his efficiency. But
you're I've just realised, for those of you listening, if you don't know who Michael is and we're running this scholarship is, look up the farming ladder. The whole feel as you read it is so enjoyable to read, because like I was always told I was never going to be able to do like high level degree because I had a journalistic form of writing. Now I did do a master's, but I still have that because it's nice. Like it's nice to read. Like you throw in jokes just about every 2 seconds. Like, a photo in Cambodia of 4 women working and 1 man doing nothing. A concept I want to bring to the UK. Like, that's funny. Like this.
Do you think I could get away with that these days, though?
I don't think there's an issue with that. I don't think there's an issue with that at all. Because if it was said the other way around, I wouldn't see an issue with it either.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to get in trouble for that. But I think it really. As I said, I haven't at all read your full scholarship. I think it's 68 pages. But
meant to be 20, Wallace.
Oh, but yeah, I've glanced through it and I've fair enjoyed reading the parts. But that's actually maybe a point. You've sort of written this scholarship on the basis of the troubles you've went through in gaining a tenancy, gaining land, yeah? And what was the inspiration for that? For what I understand, the name was from a book called The Farming Ladder by George
Henderson.
Yep.
Yeah.
But what you're in this position, you're in this position where you can't get a tenancy. Let's or whatever that is. Most people's goal is, I'm just going to push. Your goal was to try and change it for everyone, or that's certainly the way I see it. Or maybe that wasn't the goal at all.
Well, actually, no, that is probably true to start with. But I was actually given someone who won't remember. I met him once, but he said, he was a Nuffield scholar. He said, be selfish.
Okay.
I was all for, we're going to change the system and all that sort of stuff. And it was one of the best pieces of advice. You know, I absolutely changed my concept of it. And if you're selfish about it, you'll look for the real problems that you've had and try and address those. And actually it's more real rather than trying to, and that is real. I mean, it was embarrassing. Eh? My first trip was to Australia. My first visit was to a chap at Dubbo, I think. He was like mega progressive, and he was a real interesting chap. And he asked me a question around dinner. He says, so what's first generation farming in the UK? What about it? And I listed off all the excuses, like,
right.
The system's crap, there's nothing there, there's blah, 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 blah. And he looked at me as if I was a pathetic loser.
Well, I hate to say I'm with them, that's not what I mean, but like, it's a mentality we've grown used to.
Yes.
As a country, we're used to having things, and when it doesn't work, we blame everything else apart from us.
Absolutely.
So that's not me having a go at you at all.
No, I am. No, I know, but I had to realize it. You know, it was a gift that he gave me, because he was very sneering about it. And he came up with a thing. I mean, it's a little bit corny, but his sort of catchphrase was, "What's to be is within me." You know what I mean? So I always thought it was like the Scottish government's problem. You know, it was 90% about the system and 10% about me. Actually, it's the other way around. It's 90% about me and 10% about the system. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be easy. It's something really hard. And actually, that in turn is a gift, because if you do something in farming as a first generation guy, it's something to be really proud of. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely changed the whole thing. And we had another thing in America that we went around the Gettysburg battlefield. And there's this old Marine that took us round. And I'm not sure if you've seen what's the Clint Eastwood film? Oh, shit, I keep on forgetting what it is.
I know of one Clint Eastwood film, so I don't know if it's going to be any help.
He's in the Marine. I'm going to rip your head off and shit down your neck. No,
pretty sure it's not that. No, I think it's one where he's friends with an orangutan.
Oh right, okay. Anyway,
which way
that loose. Yeah. Anyway, the Marines have this phrase: adapt, innovate, and overcome. Mm-hmm. And he kept on saying it, and he's great storyteller. He told the story about Gettysburg and all that sort of stuff, which is really interesting. And that connected again with Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, which absolutely inspired me. But that's another story. But adapt, innovate, overcome. Absolutely. I mean, I've said it so much, it's got a wee bit, it's maybe lost a little bit of meaning, but when you really think about it, that should be what new entrants think about all the time. You know, because you're never going to get a free run. You have to adapt and you have to innovate, because doing things conventionally is a no-go unless you've got loads of money. And and that's how you get there. So
it's a great thought process for just about anything, really. I mean, you could have just went and listened to Bear Grylls. I'm pretty sure he says that all the time.
Oh yeah, he does.
But I also don't want to find a way forward in life where I have to drink my own urine all the time. So, you know, there's different ways to look at
I
these
loved
things.
his. Did you see him with Louis Theroux? Yeah.
I've never really watched Bear Grylls.
Right. Well, Bear doesn't call his, the thing that wakes you up in the morning. He doesn't call it an alarm clock.
Okay.
He calls it an opportunity clock.
Okay. I think when folk get to this stage, it's just taking the mick. But see, I could be wrong. I've told you off camera how much I need to wake up after.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, no, I love it though. I tell my daughter that, the 17-year-old daughter, and she just shakes her head at me.
Shut up, Dad.
You set your clock.
Yeah, so New Zealand, Australia, Cambodia, India, States, and France. That's where it ended, wasn't it? France, and that's where you learned about that's where you learned about rotational grazing and whatnot. But it's quite cool. I think one of the things I really enjoyed listening to the sort of the Nuffield story, if you will, Michael, is the fact that there's so many points you can remember. Like this was a point in my life where a change happened, or where a thought process occurred. Like the standouts are the guy with the easy cares. Oh, I can actually make this change. Maybe I can create a new breed of sheep. Or was it Noi in Cambodia saying freedom? Or was it adapt, innovate, overcome? Was it all these sort of things? And I think maybe without realizing, I think we all have sort of moments in life where you're like, oh, or everything I've just done is incorrect. Why am I thinking that way, or whatever? And it's quite cool that you've sort of been aware of those sort of conscious decisions that have been made and why they've been made. But I could what was that?
No. You go.
I was going to say I could sit here and talk about the Nuffield Scholarship for some time, because it's interesting to me. It's something I've been aware of even from when I wasn't really into farming or interested in farming. It always mum would have mentioned if someone was a Nuffield scholar or whatever, and that seemed really big in my head, and I think it is. I don't think it is a big thing, and I think you're pretty bad for putting yourself down, even though you were a cocky arsehole when you finished it, as you said. So the story that you've went through and the things you'll have learned is huge. But is there a part of Nuffield Scholarship that means that you've got to give back what you've learned? Do you talk about your scholarship? Do you do that sort of thing?
Yeah, I did quite a lot. So when I came back, when I was an arsehole.
Yes.
Yeah. And I did quite a lot of talks, but it only has a certain lifespan, I feel, because look, I'm 53 now. I'm not the face of new entrant farming, but I am speaking to new entrants in Dingwall later this month. And of course, when someone asks me to do it, I will definitely do it. And I'm really, it's something very close to my heart, and I get very passionate about it. And I've got someone coming day after tomorrow for lunch who's a new entrant. I get, people come. That's not an open invitation, but
fine then.
No, so they're very underwhelmed when they come, but I do feel that they're it's definitely close to my heart, and I do try and I still try and promote a little bit the study, the report.
Mm-hmm. It's you mentioned you got a 2-2 in English without reading a book. Yeah. Now I am a lecturer. I am.
Are you going to tell me off?
Education, whatever. Not at all. I'm going to back you up, and I'm going to say that I know there's students listening to this, and it's everyone has a different way of studying. Books were not mine.
Yeah,
I just couldn't read them. For the reason I mentioned earlier. The officially written format just does not go into this head that doesn't think that way. And that's why I would actually direct people to yours, because it is easy reading. Like it doesn't feel like a study. It feels like it's a scientific journal written by a journalist, and that's like the best combination. It's where I always fail from an academic perspective, but it's very nice for a reader to read.
But you know, I mean, you do it. I mean, I think audio and YouTube, obviously, you see, and you know fine well how powerful that communication medium is. And I think that, I think writing is kind of last decade, isn't it?
It's a phenomenal skill to have writing still engaging.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very difficult. I mean, Claire Taylor, we mentioned earlier, she is one that has that gift.
Yeah.
It's not something everyone can do. And like you say, video, audiobooks, whatever. I mean, I was told last week I have a face for Spotify, which was kind.
I don't agree with that.
But what I also did, over COVID, I basically left my house in Dumfries, went home to Farm and Iron, and filmed a bunch of videos for students because they couldn't do stuff.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
The amount of things they gained from that, and I'm going to do what you do here and put myself down. I was in my first year teaching, and they weren't that good, and the video editing quality was below zero, but it was still useful. And there's so many different ways, and I think we have to promote that.
Yeah,
that it doesn't have to be this perfectly written article. Some things do, but that was what I really liked about yours. Yeah, you enjoyed it.
Well, yeah, I'm getting flashbacks because I'm trying to do an audio. It's like an audio Nuffield. I got some funding because I do the pasture pod occasionally, and I've got some funding to do a time podcast on time and farming.
Okay.
And it being either, but it's become all engrossing, just looking at systems and doing things right or doing the right thing, that kind of thing. And, so I feel like I'm on another Nuffield now. And we'll see what happens.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Can you do 2 Nuffield scholarships?
No, you can't. I think, no.
I hope you've kicked your feet up and got comfy and enjoying another fantastic episode of the R2Kast with another really interesting guest. I would just like to quickly take another second to plug the sponsors of the show today, the Scottish Farmer. And I would strongly advise you to go out and pick one up this week and see even more of the fantastic people that are in our industry.
I'm sort of going to take you back a minute there, Michael. You said you don't think you're the face of new entrant farming, which I think is quite interesting because you said you're 53 and you have been a new entrant farmer since you started farming. Yeah. So surely that's the exact face of new entrant farming, as opposed to
look, I'm not. It's not. Maybe it's poster boy. I mean, I would. The thing is, you need to refresh. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if I spoke quite a different lot. To quite a different. I spoke at the NFU. Spoke at a lot of conferences about first generation farming. I spoke at a new entrants conference. So, I mean, I think a lot of the new entrants might have seen me talk. Maybe not. I don't know. But I just assumed that I don't want to, once you've told your story once, that's fine, So I wouldn't say there's other people that have done really good stuff and a lot of people that have done more. Yeah. See, I was just about to put myself down there, Willis. Now you got me paranoid. But
there's
like
always,
there's really good stuff.
Better stuff than me. There's always going to be someone that's done more or done better.
Yes, absolutely. So they can be inspirational as well. It's good to, I'm not a new entrant anymore. I'm a first generation farmer, which I'll always be.
Okay.
But I just I would absolutely drop everything to talk about it to anyone, because I feel it's important. I went to Carbon Calling, the conference in Penrith.
Heard of it, but know nothing about it.
Yeah.
I have a guess what it's about. But,
yeah, I got everyone up chanting "Pasture pumps me up." Like there was 200 people going, "Pasture pumps me up, Pasture pumps me up," Anyway, but there was a lady at the end that asked a question about, it was actually just a panel, not talking about first generation farming, but saying she's got a niece that's trying so hard to get into farming, and what can we do to help her get on the thing. And I was so passionate that the first place she has to go is herself. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it all came flooding back about, and it does get a wee bit American self-help stuff. It's like, it's I took a great phrase from, who's the really tall guy, American self-help guy? He speaks like this.
I hope.
Anyway, that'll come to me. But he said why people fail isn't because of a lack of money, a lack of time, a lack of opportunity, because that's what they blame. It's not about that. It's not about a lack of resources. It's about a lack of resourcefulness.
Okay, yeah,
definitely. And I loved that. I loved it, because I went to the Outback to see this lady, Chris Ferguson, who was a Nuffield scholar, but she took me around for a week meeting lots of different farmers in the Outback, and they were into the 9th, 10th year of drought.
Oh, really? Wow.
Everything. I mean, she had no stock left. She would just catch goats using water traps. They come to the water. She'd close the gate. It's fenced off. I think 20,000 goats she'd do a year. Anyway, we go around, and all these people had faced such adversity. They had no resources. Resource was failing them. And it was the resourcefulness that it was really clear in that setting that's what made it.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually. Yeah.
So,
I do. Fail not because of
Tony Robbins.
Who?
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins. I will look this person up. Michael, I'm conscious of time because
you've got
a concert practice to go to.
Yes.
And hopefully when this is released, concert will have went well, and Lower Nithsdale will have had a fantastic concert.
What are you playing?
So a few things. I've probably got 5 or 6 roles, if you will. So it's like sketch based as opposed to character based.
All right.
Yeah, it's good fun. Really good fun, actually. You should come down. But you mentioned the sort of the podcast, the Pasture Pod, which is a podcast you've done since 2017, did you say?
Yeah, but I mean, you're so good at putting them out, but I've done about 4 a year. I think I'm on episode 9 to 22.
That's still a fair chunk.
They are 3 hours long, So I make that up in duration.
It's funny you say that. I mean, I sometimes think about doing like a 3-hour podcast because, there's some people, I'm pretty sure you're one of them, actually, that I could just sit here and talk for 3 or 4 hours. But I'm like, are folk going to listen to this for 4 hours?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I listen to Joe Rogan, and his will often hit 3.5, 4 hours. And I've maybe watched the Elon Musk one, the Ye On Me Park one, by the way. If we're talking about poverty, she escaped North Korea, and the thing that really resonated with me from that podcast was she witnessed her own mother being raped, and it didn't bother her. It was just normal. That was fine. Yeah, that's how bad it was. And she got out of North Korea, and she's now she's like a anti-North Korea, an anti-regime. It's called anti-regime activist in the States, and there's not many podcasts I've listened to and just been like listening and nothing else can take my mind off it, because oh my god, we don't realise how lucky we are. You saw some of.
Was she on Joe Rogan? Or
yeah,
was she...
Joe Rogan.
Yeah,
Yeonmi Park. So Yeonmi Park. Phenomenal. But for the most part, I don't think everyone's going to listen to 3 hours every single week or 6 times a month. I'm releasing it at the minute. But here, maybe it'll start. But thank you for coming on, first off. Hugely appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, Willis.
Well, it has been from my side, apart from the times when you're a bit of an arsehole. But
I'm going to get back to being an arsehole. So
yeah, exactly. That's it. There's 2 questions I finish every podcast with, and one of them is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And the second one, I don't think we've had anyone better to answer this question in the 81 podcasts we've done. What are your tips for folk getting into farming? Now, I'm also going to extend that a wee bit because I'm being a bit selfish here, as I told you off camera. What would your tips be for getting into the Nuffield Scholarship as well? So it's technically 3 questions for you. Okay.
What was the first one again? What was that?
5 years. What do you see yourself doing in 5 years?
5 years. That's a really good question, because we've got 12 years left of farming. I think we may have 12 years left in this farm. Nothing signed and sealed, but I'm hoping that. And we are in danger of having to live in a box at the side of a motorway, because I've basically managed to mortgage our future for and that's that's answer, maybe one of the answers to question 3, but I've put all my eggs in this basket, and I need to have a retirement plan. So I've got to get my finger out in 12 years time to get a chunk of money, so my incredibly patient wife can actually have a decent retirement, plus maybe we travel a bit and stuff like that. So I think we'd have an incredibly simple system here, which takes very little time, because that is the unseen dimension to all this, is time. If you are in a relatively profitable farm system, but it takes up all your time, so you can't do anything else, there's an opportunity cost there. So I wanted at one point to have 100 cows and 1,000 ewes. I got to 1,000 ewes and realized that maybe wasn't what I wanted to get to.
Okay.
but I'd like 60 cows, 600 ewes here. The ewes we'd be selling wool shedding tups that are good sheep as well, really good sheep, and we'd be very simple, really low cost cow system, and I would be doing other things, because I've realized that I always wanted just to be a farmer, and I realized when I got there and I've tried to be just a farmer, it's actually not that good for me.
Okay.
Because even though I really like being on my own, and I'm actually an introvert, the connections with people is the most powerful thing in life, I think. And so I want to do something. I'm actually going to push the podcast this year. I'm going to do more and more of the podcast, I think. See if we can justify spending time on it. And so yes, it's a long answer and it's not great, but I'd like to have a really simple farm system, do something that is exciting, that has all the positive aspects of human relations, and energized by other people and energizing people in return. That's what I'd like to do, which is very vague.
I like it. Yeah. I don't think anyone knows what they're doing on the 3rd of January 2028.
Yeah, I'd like to be healthy as well. And world peace.
To just calm down. We're just going too far.
Okay, what was the second question?
If you had any tips for folk coming into farming, what would they be? You've probably given them all as you've went, in fairness, but yeah.
I think what I've done wrong, so I'll concentrate on the negative, but that credit card balance transfer was, what it did show was balls, ambition, not stopped by certain factors. What the negative side was, I never paid it off for ages. I got a really bad credit rating. I can't really borrow any money of sorts. So that has put me in a real problem. So there's, get this right, have just the first step is, like I said, the first step is the hardest. And it's probably the thing I've been most proud of, is actually to do it. And then see what happens. It's a wonderful mystery tour once you actually make the first step. So I think the first step's really, and then all the things, all the self-help stuff that I've said, you know, I think it is about you. And I would, someone said something really interesting, like Warren Buffett talked about a chap that he was at, I think it was Cornell University. He talked about a chap that he's really friendly with at Cornell. And he went into the steel industry, and Warren went into the investments and became the richest man on earth. And the steel industry was just as intelligent, just as gifted, but what Warren took from that was, it's not how hard you row, it's what boat you're in.
Yeah, I thought that's what you were going to say.
So it's pick your battles really well. Don't become a busy fool in something that is never going to, I think it's very easy to say, and believe me, I've been in the wrong boat a lot of times.
And especially if you're trying to row a speedboat, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's very true. It's a great saying. I've heard him say it. Yeah, exactly. I've heard him say it. It's a belter. He's actually really interesting to listen to. He's got such a phenomenal mind for a 94-year-old or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have to go? Because I've got another Warren Buffett story.
No, one more question, isn't there? We'll head off then. Any tips for folk coming into, well, not coming into, for folk trying to do a Nuffield Scholarship? Be selfish, of course.
I would say tell a good story.
Yeah.
In the application. Make yourself. I suppose again I have to be selfish. I have to just speak about me. It might not be relevant to others, but tell a good story. I think that was really important. And the interview is actually quite hard. So and B, I think you'll breeze it actually, but you know, have other interests than just farming and just your story, just your
topic type thing.
Yeah. Your study. You know, they're going to ask you about politics. They could ask you about politics and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, the study isn't actually the most important thing. In many ways, it's the person. So you've got to sell yourself.
If I've got to sell myself on the basis of politics, I might as well not try.
No, what do you mean? Though?
I know nothing about it.
No, but they might ask you.
Yeah.
You will give a good answer, though. I've heard you speak before. So you will give a, you know, as long as it's, so what they're testing you for is you going around, you're ambassador for Nuffield Farming Scholarships.
Okay, yeah.
You're going around meeting people. They want you to come be interesting and a good have good conversations and all that sort of stuff. So I suppose that might be one of the reasons why they're testing you that way. So you've got to have, you know, a wide range of interests, or at least give answers that are
make it look like you have.
Well, or even, you know, you don't have to know anything about it, but you just have to give an interesting answer.
Sounds good. Excellent. Well, dear Michael, it's been a pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed coming on the podcast yourself.
Yeah, no, it's been good. I'm going to have to get you on the pasture pod.
I don't know anything about grass. So It's funny, whenever I've got folk on the podcast, and I know some of my colleagues listen to this, and like you say, when you work for SRUC or SAC, you've got all this like contact to all these experts. Like, I can make TikToks like, why am I here? And they're always speaking about grass and stuff like that. And if I ever have someone on the podcast that is talking about rotational grazing or regenerative farming, looking at herbal ways and all that sort of thing, I can just feel them saying, how's he talking about this? What's he talking about? Like, what's he talking about? I bring folk on the podcast so I can pretend that it looks like I know something, but I never speak, so it's perfect.
Yeah. Hey, that's another thing about the Nuffield. Be passionate about stuff, about what you're passionate about. Get that passion over.
That's a good one. Well, yeah, very good one. I think that's a good thing for life, really. But it has been an utter pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. Well, it's really good to speak to you.
Yeah, and keep in touch definitely if we can. Well, no, I'm not even going to say I'd come on your podcast because it would be unfair on everyone. We'll arrange something else at some point, and I'm sure our paths will cross in the future. If you've enjoyed listening, everyone else, next week we'll be seeing you for Charles Dowding. So if you think I sometimes don't know what I'm talking about, just wait for next Friday. This podcast has grown so many arms and legs to the point that I'm meeting some fantastic people like Michael here today and Charles. And I do have to say, I think I can say it now because it's not official, but it's in talks. I said you were the second most requested. The most requested I am currently speaking to is PA. So we might have a Clarkson's Farm-based episode coming.
He's got a PA?
Oh, he's got like 3 PAs. I've spoken to them all. So yeah, that's what happens when you go from 2,000 followers on Facebook to 1.2 million total.
Wow.
Yeah, overnight. But yeah, hope you've enjoyed the episode. We'll see you next week. And yeah, don't know why I'm pretending there's any more to say because there's not. Catch you later on.
I hope you've enjoyed another excellent episode of the R2Kast. I just want to take this moment to quickly thank our primary sponsors once more, A-Plan Rural. If you follow A-Plan on social media, you'll see the work they're doing to really promote British farming and back our industry. It's been a pleasure working alongside A-Plan Rural so far, and long may it continue. The values of A-Plan Rural runs perfectly in line with the whole mantra of Rural to Kitchen, and I'm glad to have them on board. Check them out on Instagram at A-Plan Rural and on Facebook at A-Plan Rural Insurance. See you for the next podcast.